gavel fell too quietly. Hey, night listener. Tonight, we enter the shadows. The street outside is slick with rain, the kind that rolls like mercury down the windshields of cars that haven't moved in hours. Neon signs flicker half-lit warnings. A dog barks once, then nothing like even the animals know not to speak too loud. Inside your apartment, the air hangs heavy, still, like the story's over, like justice has been served. But justice never walks out on cue, and tonight, she's still in the wings, bleeding from her blindfold. The verdict was guilty, life without parole. The city exhaled, but your lungs won't empty. Something's wrong, something's missing. If this story found you, maybe it's because you've been followed too. So, before we vanish into this mystery, like the video and subscribe only if you can handle the truth buried beneath the lies. And tell me, where are you listening from tonight? Are you drawn to the truth, the thrill, or the justice? Now, lock your doors, take a deep breath, and follow me into the dark. The courtroom was too quiet when the gavel fell. That's the first thing you remember. No whispers, no gasps, just a hollow crack echoing off sterile marble and a dozen too perfect faces. You were there just outside the gallery. Not invited, not needed, but you watched anyway. The accused didn't flinch. The judge didn't look up. The jury didn't blink. You should have felt closure. Instead, you felt something else draft, not wind, something missing. The air, disturbed by something just out of frame. That's when it started. Later, back at your desk, you replay the trial in your mind. Again, and again, and again. Like a broken film loop, searching for the moment it tore. You check the court record public transcript, digital log, the official archive. Clean, too clean. The kind of clean that stinks like bleach after blood. But something small catches your eye. An inconsistency. You scroll through the scanned document of the final day's transcript and notice the timestamp on the top right corner. 3:16 p.m. But you remember it ending at 4:42. You were there. Your watch had buzzed. You checked it twice, once when the judge spoke, once when the audience stood. So, where's the missing time? It gets worse. You re-watch the sentencing clip uploaded by the City Court channel. The video stutters. A frame skip, almost imperceptible. Except you do perceive it. Because you've been watching this system long enough to know what it sounds like when it stutters. In the background, just before the judge speaks, there's a shadow across the floor tiles. You freeze the video. The shadow moves, but no one casts it. A silhouette that shouldn't exist. A shape with no source. That night, you wake up at 3:16 a.m. A sound outside your window. You live on the 12th floor. There's no balcony, but the sound wasn't a hallucination. It was footsteps, not fading, waiting. You step to the window and look down. Nothing but streetlight halos and a city trying not to remember its sins. But taped to your window is something else. A single photograph, black and white. A courtroom still. 12 jurors, one judge, one defendant. But behind them, a 13th seat, empty. You flip the photo over. In blocky, uneven writing, 3 words. You missed it. You sit on the edge of your bed, sweating through your shirt. You remember the gavel falling. You remember the silence. But you don't remember that chair, or the fact that it wasn't always empty. Because it wasn't. It shouldn't have been. So why can't you remember who sat there? That's the moment it hits you. The trial wasn't a conclusion. It was a performance. And you weren't a spectator. You were part of the audience meant to believe the show was real. But now the curtain slipped, and you've seen the wires. The silence wasn't relief, it was redaction. You knew, but pretended you didn't. Everyone lies, especially the quiet ones. It was never about the truth, it was about control. The smudge on the judge's sleeve. You've watched enough trials to know that judges don't break character. They don't twitch, they don't flinch, and they definitely don't get careless. But in the still image you've been staring at for hours, pulled from a high-res press photo that was buried under 5 layers of local news fluff, you see it. A smudge right on the judge's left cuff. At first glance, harmless, ink, maybe, coffee, even stress. But under the magnifier, it isn't random. It's shaped like a thumbprint, pressed inward, like someone grabbed him or warned him. You pull court security footage what's available to the public. At least, most of it is useless. Angles carefully chosen. No sound, no wide shots, but one file is mislabeled, archived under a parking lot timestamp. It's a view of the side entrance 2 hours before the verdict. You slow it down, frame by frame. That's when you see the judge. He's standing in the hall, robe off, shirt sleeves rolled. He's talking to someone, except the someone is blurred, not by motion, by design. The system glitches only where that person stands, but their hand reaches forward, grabs the judge's wrist just for a second, then gone. And when the judge returns to the bench later that afternoon, the cuff is rolled down and the smudge is there. Not new, not accidental, marked. You remember the way he looked during the sentencing, how his voice wavered just slightly before reading the verdict, how he avoided the defendant's eyes, like he wasn't reading a decision, like he was reading from a script he didn't write. You play that memory in your mind, again and again. The phrase he used still haunts you. May this outcome bring you peace, peace. Not justice, not justice, not closure. You knew, but pretended you didn't. You stare at the still image until your eyes hurt. The judge's hand, still as stone, but something nags. That thumbprint, it's dark, darker than any ink. You pull it into a filter program, isolate the tones. It's not coffee, it's not inked, it's powder, gunpowder. Why would a judge have residue on his sleeve, especially from a kind of weapon? The courthouse security doesn't allow inside, unless it wasn't from a weapon fired in the courtroom, unless it was from someone else's hand, someone who'd fired it elsewhere, someone who gripped him tight enough to leave a trace. You drive to the courthouse the next day, ask to speak to him. You're told he's retired, effective the day after the trial. No notice, no press release, no successor named. He just left. No one's seen him since. No one's looking either. You stand in the empty courtroom that afternoon. It smells of pine cleaner and cold air, but you swear the walls still remember something they're not saying. And when you stand at the judge's bench, one thing becomes crystal clear. He did step down. He was pulled down, and not by protocol. You place your hand where his would have rested. Close your eyes. Imagine the last thing he saw before reading that verdict. Not the gallery, not the press, but someone behind the glass of the observation box. You open your eyes and look to the same place. A smudge on the observation glass in the shape of a hand. What if you've been the suspect all along? The question curls through your skull like smoke. You came here looking for answers, but the moment you found the smudge, you inherited the same threat. The gavel fell too quietly. The sleeve was marked. And justice, she never left the room. She just changed seats. The wrong photograph on your desk. You didn't put it there. You're sure of that? The photograph waits on your desk like it's always belonged. Laid perfectly square to the edge of your keyboard. Centered with the kind of care only obsessive hands or threatening ones would use. It's a courtroom shot, one you've never seen before, and you've seen them all. You reach out, but hesitate. The edges are too sharp, the paper too fresh. You don't scan it. Not yet. First, you study the image. It's from the trial. That trial. The one where the gavel fell without an echo, and a man was sentenced while the city exhaled. But this photo shows a moment no one remembers. A woman, mid-30s, dark bobbed hair, a single pearl earring on the witness stand, eyes wide, hands gripping the railing like it might dissolve if she let go. Her mouth is caught mid-sentence, terrified, intent. You don't recognize her because she never appeared in any transcript, any footage, any public record of the trial. But here she is, center frame, like she was the moment everything turned. You flip the photo, written in the same jagged scrawl as before. She wasn't supposed to speak. The words land like a bruise. You sit down, because if this woman wasn't in the official record, then someone wiped her clean. And that means someone's scared of what she said, or worse, who she saw. You pull up the master witness list, scroll, search, nothing, not even a redacted placeholder. No one matching her face ever existed in the trial. You reverse image search the photo. No hits, no fingerprints on the back. Either you check, careful to preserve the smudge already there. Not yours. Someone else's thumbprint, oily, partial, smeared like they'd pressed too hard in a hurry, like they wanted to be caught, or needed to leave a mark behind before being erased. You return to the photo, zoom in on the background. A sliver of the jury box is visible behind her. 12 faces blurred by motion, except one. The same man from your dream last night. The same face you thought you imagined, square jaw, creased brow, a scar across his left cheek. You've never met him, but somehow, you know he's the reason you woke gasping for air at 3:16 a.m. again. You print the photo, hang it next to your monitor, label it in red pen, missing witness. You need verification, so you pull one of the trial's full gallery feeds from your archive. Every camera, every frame. You run facial recognition in reverse against the woman in the photo. Still nothing, but a name keeps popping up in unrelated footage. Over and over, sidewalk cams, coffee shops, parking garages near the courthouse. No timestamps, no source IDs, just a placeholder. Witness 34. 34. You check the official list again. The prosecution called 10. The defense, 4. That's 14. So who were the other 20? You knew, but pretended you didn't. That night, someone calls your burner phone. Blocked ID. You answer anyway. A voice, female, low, controlled. She was real, and she didn't disappear. She was absorbed. You wait, heart hammering. They changed her designation after the trial, folded her into the registry under a sealed case number. You won't find her unless you know what to look for. You ask the obvious, who are you? The voice doesn't pause. A witness, like you. Only difference, I remembered sooner. Click. You go back to the photograph one more time. There at the edge of the frame, nearly out of sight, is a lanyard, hanging from her neck, almost invisible. You zoom, enhance. The badge clipped to it is reversed in the image, but readable in the reflection of the railing, and the name on it, yours. But you weren't on the stand. You never took the stand. So how was she wearing your name? You sit there for a long time, breathing shallow, the silence inside your apartment turning dense and electric. There's a part of the trial you weren't meant to remember, a version of you that saw more than they should have. And now you have evidence of her, a woman who wore your name, and might still be out there somewhere carrying the truth they tried to bury in you. You always knew this wasn't over. You just didn't know how far back it really went. It was never about the verdict. It was about who got to tell the story and who was forced to forget they were in it. A juror breaks their silence. It starts with a knock, not the kind that demands, the kind that asks. 3 soft raps on your apartment door. You check the peephole. Nothing. But when you open it, there's an envelope taped to the outside. No address, no name, just one word written across the front in ballpoint pen: deliberation. You open it with care gloved, quiet, paranoid. Inside a folded note on yellow legal paper, a different handwriting than the photograph message, smoother, but shaking in its own way. I was juror number 6. I wasn't supposed to write this. We weren't supposed to talk at all. But someone lied in that room, and not one of us had the guts to stop it. Your pulse tightens. You keep reading. The vote wasn't 12-0. It was 11-1. I was the one. You sit down hard, because that verdict, life without parole, was unanimous. On record, it was sealed airtight. No dissension, no holdouts. But that was the show, not the reality. The note continues. I asked questions no one else wanted to ask. I said the timeline didn't make sense, that the evidence chain had gaps, that something felt directed, like we were meant to arrive at a decision, not discover one. But I was told privately, after hours, that resisting consensus would be a breach of judicial compliance. You whisper it out loud. Judicial compliance. You've never heard that phrase before. You search it. Nothing in legal databases, nothing in federal court code, but deep in the underbelly of message boards used by whistleblowers and archivists, a definition emerges: judicial compliance. A procedural enforcement protocol allowing predetermined verdict guidance to prevent trial disruption. Predetermined, guided. The note ends simply. I'm not proud, but I was scared. We all were. That verdict wasn't justice. It was permission. If you're reading this, you know something's off too. Don't trust the record. We weren't the jury. We were the audience. You check the handwriting against courthouse sign-in logs, the old kind, physical, ink and paper. One matches. A name, Caleb Dorr. He was on the original juror list, but his signature disappears after day 2. You remember the court explaining it as illness. He was replaced by alternate number 3, except the alternate never showed their face. And now you have a letter from someone who claims he stayed the whole time, hidden in plain sight, watching a verdict unfold that he didn't agree with. You dig deeper, find a coffee shop near the courthouse standard haunt for jurors on break. You scrub security footage, and there, 4 days into the trial, is Caleb, alive, alone, sitting in the corner, scribbling in the same yellow legal pad. The time stamped after 12:36 p.m. The court was in session then, which means he wasn't just watching, he was recording. And if he's still alive, he might have kept more than this letter. That night, you hear scratching, not on your door, from inside. The sound is coming from behind your bookshelf. You pull it away. There's a vent. Inside, another envelope. Same paper, same pen. I've been watching too. You're close, but they're closer. Don't believe the exit interview, and check your voicemail. You grab your burner phone. There's a single new message. It plays in silence for 10 seconds. Then 11-1, and I still see her face. The missing witness. She wasn't erased. She was injected, like a foreign body, into a healthy system, and the system rejected her. That's what the verdict was. A pause. Then, quieter. You knew. but pretended you didn't. Click. You sit in the dark, thinking. If one juror remembered, maybe more did. But only one broke and left you the match. Now it's your turn to light the fire. Everyone lies, especially the quiet ones. And this verdict wasn't silence, it was fear. The gavel didn't fall, it was dropped. The missing recording log. You've seen hundreds of courtroom logs, everything time-stamped, recorded, and transcribed. Even the coughs of the bailiff usually end up catalogued. But this one has a hole in the middle of its memory. You get your hands on a duplicate of the courtroom audio archives. It takes a favor, then another, then a threat implied without needing to be said. And there it is, folder labeled Day 5, Sentencing, 38 audio files, except file 27 is missing. The files go from 1:04 p.m. straight to 1:21 p.m., 17 minutes gone, exactly when the verdict was delivered. And no redaction notice, no missing file alert, no corrupted data tag. It's like it never existed, or was intentionally removed. You go to the court clerk's office, ask to inspect the original hard copies. They give you the standard look, then say all sentencing files are available online now. We've moved away from analog storage. You press harder. They smile thinner. There's nothing else to see. You leave, but before the door closes behind you, the clerk adds, some things aren't lost. They're just hidden from the wrong eyes. That night, you break into the records annex. Nothing violent, just a lock that didn't really want to stay locked, and the stale breath of old files that haven't seen light in years. There's a bin marked Trial People, Foul, Grange Archived. Inside are labeled cassettes. Yes, cassettes, old school backups made by paranoid clerks who still believed in magnetic tape. You flip through them one by one. File 27 is there, but it's unlabeled. The tab snapped off, like someone wanted to prevent it from being erased or copied. You take it home and find the one cassette player you own, buried in a junk box under old chargers and receipts. Press play. For a long moment, silence. Then a voice. Not the judge's, not the defendant's. Yours. You speaking. Except you don't remember saying these words. We need to stop the clock. It's happening again. If this verdict goes through, we'll never get another chance. Then static. Then another voice, mechanical, but human enough to chill your spine. Juror input deviates from expected trajectory. Override initiated. Proceed with final reading. Then the gavel. And screaming. Muted. Like it came from a room behind glass. Then cut. You rewind. Play it again. There's a background sound in the static. A ticking. Not a clock. Not regular. A timer. Counting down. But to what? You pull up the official trial video again, synced to the moment the verdict is read. In the reflection of the defendant's glasses, tiny, warped, you see a light blinking red on the bench, right before the sentence is spoken. A red light, recording, but not for the public. Internal. You try to match the cadence of the ticking to anything you know, and it hits you. Courtroom emergency override beacons used only in cases of witness danger, bomb threats, or technological interference. But no such emergency was ever logged, which means someone hit that beacon from the inside and covered it up. You go back to the photo of the missing witness, zoom in on her lapel. There's something small clipped just under her collar. A mic? No. A beacon. One of the prototypes tested for remote courtroom compliance tracking. She wasn't just a witness. She was being monitored, controlled, or maybe implanted. You write on your whiteboard, File 27. Who recorded it? And below that, why was I speaking? Because you know your own voice, and you know you never stood at that bench, but someone sounding exactly like you did. A reflection, a clone, an echo, or the real you, buried under a version that's been scrubbed clean. You knew, but pretended you didn't. It was never about the truth. It was about who controlled the recording. The tape ends with one last whisper, half static, half breath. Not everyone in that courtroom was real. And now you're starting to think, maybe neither were you. A message carved into your door. You wake up before dawn. The air in your apartment cold enough to sting. The room's quiet, too quiet. The kind that hums in your bones when the world is holding its breath. You pull yourself out of bed, head spinning from dreams you can't remember, and whispers that feel like they never stopped. The hallway is dark, and at the end of it, your door. You blink once, twice, and then you see it, scratched into the wood, just beneath the peephole, carved, rough and fast with something jagged. Verdicts can lie, evidence doesn't. You don't open the door. You listen. A full minute passes. No movement outside. No footsteps in the stairwell. Only the soft mechanical breathing of the hallway light buzzing above. You back away slowly. Turn on every light in the apartment. You check your locks, your windows, your closet. Everything's untouched, except your front door and the warning etched into it. You photograph it. Zoom in. The letters are shallow, but specific, curved, too careful for panic, not vandalism. This was a message left by someone who knew what they were doing, and who wanted to leave just enough. You run the scratches through a stylus analysis app meant for forensic handwriting. The angles match something from earlier. The note left by Juror 6, a 43-degree upward stroke at the end of the word, doesn't, same as the one in compliance from the letter. He carved this. But when and why come here unless he knows you're following the same trail? Unless he needed you to. You scan the door's surface under UV. They're barely visible, a faint print beside the phrase. A thumb smudge again. This one incomplete but distinctive. A crescent-shaped scar across the pad of the thumb. You remember it. In the courtroom gallery. Day 4. One of the reporters. Only he wasn't holding a camera. Just a clipboard. You pull up the archived footage. Zoom in. The badge is generic. No outlet. Just a barcode. But in one frame. As he moves past a seated woman, he turns, and the inside of his coat reveals something strange. 2 watches, one on each wrist, neither showing the same time. You freeze the image. Enhance. One is set to 3:16 p.m. The other was 11:11 a.m. Neither correspond with when that trial ended. But trim to 16, you've seen it before. On the courtroom transcript. On the tape. On the night you first woke up, sweating, heart racing, convinced someone had been standing at your window. You go back to the photograph of the woman, the missing witness. She is gripping the railing. Look closer. Under her sleeve, barely visible, is the outline of a watch. The same make, same model. Her time ended at 11:11, the exact time he was marked. It wasn't random. They were synchronized. What if the verdict wasn't about guilt? What if it was a trigger, a scheduled event? The courtroom didn't just convict someone. It activated something. And now you're on the list of people who noticed. You write on your wall in red marker, time is the witness, then below it. So who's running the clock? Your phone pings. One text. Block number. The door was just the beginning. We all left messages, some in walls, some in skin, then another. You knew, but pretended you didn't. Then, tick, tick, tick. You You close your eyes and hear it again. Not your heart, not a memory. The ticking, not fading, coming closer. You check your watch. 3:16. You grab the photo, the tape, the letter, then rip open the baseboard near your door, the one with the odd discoloration. Inside, taped behind the drywall, a second envelope. No note, just a courtroom sketch, rough, inked in blood-red charcoal. It's of you, seated in the jury box, holding a stopwatch and smiling. What if you've been the suspect all along? The verdict wasn't just for them, it was for you, too. And now, justice is watching, waiting for you to confess what you were never meant to forget. The juror who wasn't on the list. You thought you'd memorize the names. 12 jurors, 4 alternates, all accounted for in the record. Until now, you're combing through backup footage from the bailiff's body cam, scrubbed from official files, but recovered through a backdoor channel on an archivist forum, and something strange appears during a lunch recess on day 3. The jurors are returning to the box. One by one, you count them. 12. Then a 13th figure steps in. No badge, no folder, no nameplate. They sit in the front row. They blend in until you zoom and realize they never blink. Not once in 12 minutes of footage. You run the facial match through government ID databases, old juror logs, even obituaries. Nothing until you check a decommissioned training module for courthouse AI-assisted compliance observers. There's a face there, unlabeled, but unmistakable. Same jawline, same smile, same hollow stare. It's not a juror, it's a plant, a behavioral modulator, a trial influence agent. Not human, not entirely, prototype stage. Supposedly deactivated a year before this trial. But there they are, sitting in the juror's seat, hand folded, no notes, no reactions, just watching, just recording, or worse, guiding. You revisit the trial video, slow motion. You watch as juror 4, the real one, starts to raise a hand. Mid-question, his fingers twitch, then drop. And that figure, the one who doesn't blink, turns slightly. That's all it takes. Juror 4 doesn't speak again for the rest of the trial. You start cataloging the effects. Who stutters after looking in that direction? Who changes tone? Who hesitates? It's consistent. Whoever this person or entity is, they're shaping testimony without speaking. A courtroom ghost with physical presence. You reach out to a contact in court systems IT. They meet you in a parking garage downtown. You slide the photo across the dashboard. No names, no preamble. They go pale. Then say one word, ghost board. You wait. It's a tool for trial pattern optimization. Behavioral audit AI, rendered in soft bioshell, meant to observe juror response and promote outcome stability. You ask the only question that matters. How many are still active? They shake their head. Officially, 0. Unofficially, we stopped counting at 23. You go back to the photo of the trial, the one someone left on your desk. Zoom in again. There's the 13th juror. Same posture, same faint smirk, same eyes. Only now this time you see it. A reflection in the gloss of the table. There's something behind the smirk, an object in their palm, small, metallic, a metronome, tapping, tick, tick, tick. The witness who never spoke, the juror who never blinked, the verdict that didn't feel like a decision, but a performance. You write across your wall in black ink. It wasn't a trial, it was a reset. And now, it's happening again. That night, another envelope slides under your door. Inside, a torn page from an old court ledger. In the margin, circled in red seat, 13, reserved for stabilization. Beneath it, a hand-scribbled warning. If they weren't human, what does that make the rest of us? You knew, but pretended you didn't. Everyone lies, especially the quiet ones. It was never about the truth. It was about suppressing the ones who could still feel it. The bailiff wasn't on payroll. You've looked at the footage a dozen times, but this time, something clicks. It's day 2 of the trial. The camera pans as the judge enters, and in the far corner, by the courtroom doors, stands a bailiff. Uniform crisp, hand on holster, expression unreadable, except he's not the same one from day 1. Different height, different posture, and a small rip in his glove. It's nothing until you freeze frame the footage from day 3. There he is again. Same glove, same rib. Still no name badge, still no record of shift logs. You rewind frame by frame and realize he never blinks either. You contact courthouse HR. You ask for the duty schedule, the security logs. You drop official sounding words like cross-examination, audit, and post-trial. Clearance reconciliation. They stall for a few hours, then finally send a file. It's missing 2 names and 2 shifts, both on verdict week, both filled in by pen, not typed by someone with a hand that shakes at the tail end of each stroke. You trace the writing to an assistant clerk who disappeared a month after the trial. Official story. Left for family reasons. Unofficial. No forwarding address. No digital footprint since. You search the surveillance cams again, this time pulling metadata from footage timestamps. The bailiff's name doesn't match any ID badge scanned in that day, which means he bypassed the system. Or worse, he was the system. That night, you get an unmarked package. Inside a courthouse staff photo, undated, old, 23 people, all smiling, all in uniform, except one, the same bailiff, standing at the edge, a step away from the others, face just slightly turned, and in his hand, not a baton, a small device with a wire running up his sleeve. You scan the image, a note scribbled on the back. Not all guards are here to protect you. You go to the courthouse the next morning. Ask the current bailiff if they recognize the man. They glance once, hand the photo back, then mutter, "We don't talk about those years. Too many shadows. Not enough exits." You press. He was one of them. You ask one of who, but they walk away. That evening, you return home to find your apartment door ajar. You freeze. Inside, nothing's missing, but everything's been touched. Your coffee mug, repositioned slightly to the left. Your office chair, just 2 inches closer to the bookshelf. Your photo of the missing witness, turned face down and carved into the back of the frame. Still watching, you flip through the courtroom footage one more time, this time looking for the edges, the quiet moments when nothing should be happening. And there he is again, the fake bailiff, not guarding, not moving, listening, always near the judge's chambers, always before a key moment. You isolate audio from his position. The signal is faint, buried under the hum of fluorescent lights. But when amplified, you hear clicks, pulses, not language, Morse code. You translate the string, proceed with sentence. Witness unstable. He wasn't keeping order. He was transmitting instructions from who to where and about whom. You write it down in black ink. The verdict wasn't heard. It was delivered. Like a package. Like a message. And the courtroom. Just the drop site. You knew, but pretended you didn't. It was never about justice. It was about transmission, delivery, compliance. And now you hear footsteps in the hall. Rhythmic, Measured, too slow to be human. You shut off the lights, hold your breath, because if the bailiff wasn't on payroll, who signed your sentence? A witness reappears, changed. It starts as a headline, buried on page 7 of a small town paper in a city you've never visited. Local woman found after long absence claims, I was never missing. You wouldn't have seen it, except someone clips it and mails it to you. No return address. Just one word scrawled on the envelope flap. Look. You scan the article. The woman's name, Claire Hollis. Not familiar, but the photo, that's different. She's older, thinner, eyes sunken, posture tight, like she's bracing for an earthquake no one else feels. You don't recognize her from the trial until you flip back to the photograph. The witness, gripping the railing, single pearl earring. It's her. It's Claire. But she was never listed as a witness, never referenced in court transcripts, never acknowledged in the judge's summary. And now, here she is, alive and walking around like she hasn't been missing for years. Except you know she has, and so does whoever sent you the clipping. You call the newspaper, pretending to be a researcher. The reporter answers. You ask about Claire. Long pause. Then, she didn't remember the trial. Said she'd never been near a courtroom. But when I mentioned the defendant's name, she fainted. You press further. Where is she now? Another pause. Gone. Left town 2 days after the article ran. Said she had to find someone named Caleb. Your spine stiffens. Juror 6. You dig deeper. Claire Hollis doesn't appear in any witness databases, but she does exist in sealed patient files from a federal recovery center, 2 counties over. The note in her chart reads, subject continues to reject fabricated memories. Visual stimuli result in panic or shutdown. Recommend full cognitive reset protocol if instability persists. The next page is redacted, except for a phrase scrawled in the margin. It was never about the truth. It was about control. You finally get her number from a private investigator who owes you a favor. You call, no answer. Then a voicemail, text-to-speech transcribes her outgoing message. If you're calling about the trial, I don't remember it. If you're calling because you do, you should forget it. They'll make sure of that. Eventually. Trust what you saw before they take it from you too. Click. You track her last known location, an old boarding house near a defunct train depot. Room 9. The landlady says she left a note for the one who remembers. That's you. It's just 2 lines. I saw what no one else saw, and they made me someone else. Taped to the back is a photo. From inside the courtroom. Not the one you have. A different angle. Shot from above. Claire isn't at the witness stand. She's seated beside the defendant, wearing a court-issued badge. Label reads, Consultant Memory Forensics Division. You whisper it to yourself like a spell. Memory. Forensics. So she wasn't a witness. She was a handler. And maybe, just maybe, so were you. That night, your phone buzzes again. This time, it's a video, black and white, grainy, time-stamped. AM again, Claire, standing alone in the hallway outside the courtroom. She stares into the camera, doesn't speak, then slowly raises her hand and writes something on the wall behind her. 4 words, over and over, in looping script, until the video cuts. You pause, zoom, read the words you knew, but forgot. You sit in silence, piecing it all together. Claire wasn't lost. She was reprogrammed, sanitized, and if they could do it to her, they could do it to you. You write across your wall, I remember remembering, but for how long? And what happens when they come to fix your memory next? Everyone lies. especially the quiet ones, especially the ones who forget, especially the ones like Claire. The clock in the courtroom moved backward. You wake up at 3:16 a.m. again, same as every night this week. The digital globe pulses from the alarm clock like a metronome, unblinking, steady. But tonight, something feels off. You can't shake the image from the footage you watched just before sleep, the courtroom camera, panning across the gallery, catching the wall clock behind the judge's bench. It was subtle, but now you're sure. The second hand moved backward. You pull up the video again, slow it down to 10-cent speed. The moment is brief, exactly 1 second, just before the verdict is read. The second hand ticks backward once, then forward, then again, back, forward, back, like time hesitated or resisted. You isolate the clip, frame by frame. Each reversal coincides with something in the audio. 3 pulses, almost imperceptible. Then a voice, whispered low, barely audible beneath the courtroom silence. You enhance it. 1 word, reset. You check earlier footage from the same angle. The clock behaves normally on day 1, but on day 3, just before witness cross-examination, it jumps ahead by 6 seconds. On day 5, right before sentencing, back by 7. Time in that room didn't move forward. It shuffled, like someone or something was rewriting moments as they happened. You call a contact who once worked tech for a military tribunal, someone who understands signal scrambling and embedded time codes. You send them the clip. They call back 10 minutes later. This isn't a glitch. This is signal interference internal, like someone scrubbed seconds, then reinserted them in a different order. You ask, what does that mean for the verdict? They sigh. It means the trial we watched might not be the trial that actually happened. You go back to the digital timestamp on the official verdict file, 3:16 p.m. You compare it to an off-site log backup made by a courthouse contractor. That timestamp 3:07 p.m., 9 minutes unaccounted for. And in those 9 minutes, something was inserted, or removed, or rewritten. You open the photo. Claire left you the one where she's labeled Memory Forensics Division. Check the bottom corner. Barely visible, a series of black dots. Morse again. You run it through the decoder. It spells temporal anomaly confirmed. Memory misaligned. Beneath that, the verdict you remember wasn't the first. It was the third. You sit there, frozen. Every clock in your apartment ticking in perfect time except one. The analog one on your bookshelf. The second hand isn't moving. It's stuck on 11. Not 11 seconds, just 11. As if waiting for something. You tap the glass. It twitches once, then spins backwards. You write it down in red. Verdict 1, unknown. Verdict 2, redacted. Verdict 3, life without parole. But what if the jury only remembers the third? What if you were there for the first, and that verdict, the real one, was buried with the time that got erased? You search your old trial notes. Look for anything handwritten during the live feed. One page has a strange tear down the middle, like something was ripped out of your own memory. You trace it with your fingers. Your hand starts to shake. Because faintly, just faintly, you can still read what was there. Verdict, not guilty. So who changed it? Why? And what was so dangerous about the truth that time itself had to be edited to conceal it? You open your phone. The clock reads 3:16 p.m., then changes to 3:15, then 3:14. You blink, and it's back to 3:16. You knew, but pretended you didn't. It was never about the moment of justice. It was about what they erased to create it. And now, the clocks are spinning again. But this time, you're the one on trial. The audio glitch that spoke your name. It begins with static. You're reviewing the synced courtroom recordings again, this time aligning the judge's audio with the gallery mic, looking for bleed, for inconsistencies, for buried proof of tampering. The trial sounds normal, measured voices, rustling papers, the occasional cough, until the moment just after the final witness is dismissed. That's when it happens. A split-second burst of distortion, so subtle it almost hides inside the silence. But then, right before the next speaker begins, the static lurches and says your name. Not a coincidence. Not a coincidence. Your name, perfectly enunciated, whispered like a threat. You freeze, rewind, play it again. There's no courtroom chatter underneath, no microphone feedback, just your name, in a voice that sounds like yours, but a version you don't remember recording, like a mirror that reflects not what you are, but what was left behind. You send the clip to your trusted audio specialist. He replies within minutes. This isn't ambient sound. It's embedded, sub-layered, like someone inserted it during the master mix. We've seen this before. It's a signature. You ask, who's yours? You pull up your old research files, the ones from when you first started questioning the verdict. There's an unfinished voice memo you never remembered recording. Playback reveals background noise traffic, streetlights humming, your own uneven breath, and near the end, they told me I was a juror, but I remember a different seat. They called me the recorder. You sit in the dark, heart racing. You remember the smudge on the judge's cuff, the 13th juror who never blinked, the missing witness who came back altered, the verdict that changed time, and now your own voice hidden inside the courtroom archive. You return to the photo. Claire left. Overlay it with another image, an early architectural blueprint of the courtroom before it was retrofitted for compliance enhancement. There's a square room beneath the jury box, no longer on modern blueprints. It's labeled Observation Chamber 0, and next to it, live processing. You zoom in. Inside the booth, a single chair, wired, restrained, facing a wall of mirrored glass. You grab a pen and scrawl on your wall. I wasn't watching the trial. The trial was watching me. That night, your building loses power. Only for 60 seconds. But that's long enough for your backup drive to reboot. And when it does, a new file appears. No title, just a waveform icon. You play it. Your voice, this time crystal clear, calm, cold. The verdict was never about guilt. It was a trigger for something buried inside all of us. Then a second voice distorted. Test pattern complete. Subject now aware. Initiate containment. You unplug the drive. Smash the laptop. It doesn't matter, because now it's in your head. The verdict wasn't just recorded. It was installed. And your name in the static, that was the activation. You check your reflection. Your pupils dilate at the wrong speed. Your breath fogs the mirror a second too late. You knew, but pretended you didn't. It was never about truth. It was about remembering what you were made to forget. You return to the courtroom one last time, sneak into the observation box, and etched into the underside of the seat you once thought was yours. One final phrase, carved by someone with shaking hands and no time left. You were never the jury. You were always the verdict. The evidence box that shouldn't exist. The storage clerk calls you late, breath tight with hesitation. Says he found something that doesn't make sense. Says it's about the trial. You meet him after hours in a county records annex that smells of mildew, forgotten coffee, and too many secrets. He takes you to a steel shelf in the far back aisle, 17 row C, hands trembling. He pulls down a box that's not in any digital catalog. No barcode, no tag, just one label in faded red ink, verdict null archive X. Inside, paper evidence logs, witness statements typed in courier font, a pair of eyeglasses broken clean at the bridge, and at the very bottom, a voice recorder, cassette, dusty, labeled only Exhibit 5, unsubmitted. You ask, why now? Why show me this? He just stares, then mutters, because I saw you in the footage. But the timestamp was from 3 years ago, and this trial, it happened last spring. You take the recorder home, clean the heads, pop in the tape, static. Then a voice crackles through mail, uncertain, breath shaky. They said, if I testified, it would end. But they lied. I was never supposed to make it to the stand. He stops, rustles papers. Then Claire. Claire said there were multiple verdicts, but I thought that was metaphor. Now, I don't know. Click, end, you rewind, play again. This time, something bleeds into the background. A mechanical ticking, but not a clock. Faster, digital, like a countdown. You scan the witness statements in the box. They're all signed by names you've never seen, witnesses who never appeared in any public records of the trial. One statement ends with, the courtroom was real, but the timeline wasn't. Another, after day 4, we weren't allowed to speak without someone listening. And the last I saw the verdict change. I watched it rewrite itself on the transcript page, and no one else reacted. You call the courthouse archives. Ask for Exhibit 5. They say no such item was ever logged. You ask about the broken eyeglasses. They ask if you're joking. Those were submitted as part of a case in 1997. You check the case number scratched into the tape box. Match found. Only, it doesn't reference the defendant from your trial. It references you, filed under your name. Charge, unauthorized access to memory structuring protocol. The documents date 2026. You write on your mirror, I wasn't part of the trial. I was the evidence. You look at the glasses again. A fragment of dried blood still clings to the hinge. Under UV light, the name Claire is scratched inside the arm. Your hands shake as you pack the tape back up. But before you do, you notice something under the foam padding. A small Polaroid, blurry, yellowing, of a courtroom, dimly lit, an empty jury box, except for one person, alone, you. But the you in the photo was smiling and holding a gavel. You knew, but pretended you didn't. It was never about justice. It was about framing a memory you couldn't escape. You close the box, slide it under the floorboards, but the ticking continues, faster now, faint, but unmistakable. And you finally understand, the evidence wasn't just misfiled, it was waiting for you. The court sketch that wasn't drawn by hand, you find it in an envelope taped to the inside of your bathroom mirror. No name, no address, just that familiar ticking in your chest when something's wrong before you understand why. The sketch is on heavy parchment paper, a courtroom scene, beautifully detailed, but not drawn in charcoal, ink or pencil, etched microscopically into the page. You run your fingers over the lines. They're engraved, laser burned, too precise to be handmade, too human to be automated. At the bottom, a label, trial instance, 0-27. Verdict, loop, divergence point, reached. Your hands go cold. Instance, loop. So this isn't the first time. You stare at the image again. 12 jurors, same gallery, same judge, same clock above the bench, stuck at 3:16. But this time, one figure's missing. You. In your place, a small plaque recorder. Reset pending. You blink. Now the sketch is different. Your seat is empty again, but in the foreground, you see yourself standing, but your eyes aren't yours. They're white, blank, and your smile is too wide. You flip the page. There's a note scrawled on the back. The trial is running itself now. You were the last one they needed to believe it was real. Welcome to Observation Loop B. There's also a series of numbers, time codes. Each corresponds to key moments in the trial. Each labeled Disruption Juror 6 hesitates. Concealment Witness Memory Edited. Correction. Recorder Suppression. You follow the sequence. At the end, a single word release. You check those timestamps against your copy of the trial footage. Everything matches. But in the final timestamp, you catch something new. A shadow passes in front of the courtroom's overhead camera. Brief, fast, but it casts no reflection in the glass below. You freeze frame the moment. The shadow's outline looks familiar. A judge's robe. But when you enhance the image, there's no face under the hood. Just static, like someone cut the feed from inside the frame. You cross-reference the parchment with known courtroom documents. It doesn't match any legal print standard, but it does match the paper used by courtroom simulators, closed-loop AI programs used to run mock trials in psychological research labs. You find the project code buried in a government procurement file. Trial sim wash belladonna, purpose memory. Imprint, testing through simulated ethical dilemmas. The name listed under test subjects. Yours. You go still. Eyes scanning your living room. Suddenly everything feels like a set. The bookshelf too neatly arranged. The lighting too consistent. The ticking of the analog clock too synced with your heartbeat. You tear it off the wall. Inside, instead of gears, a microchip. It pulses once, then dies. You whisper, what if I never left the trial? What if this isn't post-verdict at all? What if this is the verdict? Your sentencing, a psychological loop you've been made to believe is real. You flip the parchment sketch over again. Another note, now visible. Heat reactive ink triggered by your touch. You knew, but pretended you didn't. It was never about guilt. It was about ensuring you'd never stop searching. You write on the wall in permanent marker, truth is the sentence, curiosity is the punishment. And you realize maybe this was never about justice. Maybe it was about what happens when you go too deep, when you stop being the observer and start being the experiment. Because someone had to stay inside the loop. And now, that someone is you. The folder marked, do not reconstruct. It's midnight when you notice it wedged between your radiator and the floorboards. Thin, black, and covered in dust. You didn't put it there. The label is typed in red. Government issue font, do not reconstruct. Beneath that, in faded graphite, a second note. He asked too many questions. You slide the folder open slowly, heart echoing like footsteps on courthouse marble. Inside, a heavily redacted transcript labeled Trial Reconstruction Attempt Number 3. A photograph of a gavel split down the middle. A memo titled Cognitive Loop. Interruption Risk Recorder Variant Active. You read the memo first. Its language is clinical, dispassionate. Subject failed to retain version cohesion across sequential verdict iterations. Memory fractures observed post-verdict in 81% of test loops. Recorder shows signs of unauthorized agency. Then underlined in black, recorder believes they are not in the loop. Recorder must be contained. You freeze. It's not just describing you, it's diagnosing you. You check the photo again. Not just a broken gavel. The split reveals reveals wires. It wasn't wood. It was a device, symbol and tool, ritual and recording, a prop with purpose to convince you. You flip to the transcript. The lines are mostly blacked out, except a few chilling exchanges. Judge, do you understand the charges against you? Recorder, I was only documenting. Judge, you were creating memory. That's interference. Recorder, I didn't know it was real. Judge, that was the point. You checked the page number 2227. The trial wasn't a single event. It was long, repeating, breaking, reforming. But the loop always ends at the same moment when you realize you're not watching. You're being watched. You dig deeper into the folder. At the very back is a post-it note, handwritten, trembling script. Recorder 002. I made it to loop 14. They say I'm still inside, but if you're reading this, you're further than I ever got. Below it, 3 words scratched deep. Do not finish. You drop the folder, back away, but the lights flicker, the same way they did in the courtroom video, seconds before the first glitch. The moment the second hand jumped backward, the moment time split. You check your laptop. The trial footage won't play. Every file now reads, loop unstable, playback denied. You open the last functioning file. It's the gavel slam, but in reverse. And instead of the judge's voice, it's yours. You knew, but pretended you didn't. This isn't justice. This is penance. The walls around you feel wrong too, even too silent, like they're padded. You open a drawer. Every item inside is blank. A phone with no call history. A notepad with no writing. Keys that unlock nothing. You rush to the mirror. Your reflection looks back, but doesn't move when you do. Its eyes are wide. Its lips are parted, like it's trying to warn you, but can't. And taped to the mirror frame, that final message. You aren't escaping. You're documenting your own sentencing. Every section you uncover brings you closer to collapse. Stop writing or finish the trial. You hesitate, then pick up the pen, because the truth, you've already written too much to stop. And somewhere inside, you suspect you were the one who labeled that folder. It was never about justice. It was about ensuring you'd keep digging, keep recording, until the memory consumed the man, and all that was left was the verdict. The defendant who had your face. The footage is grainy, low resolution, black and white. It's a copy of a suppressed feed you shouldn't have access to. Someone mailed it to you, unmarked, encoded on a corrupted thumb drive, buried inside a hollowed-out law book titled Procedural Integrity. You play it, and there, on the defense bench, sits the accused, posture slumped, shackled hands folded in front, hair disheveled, face buried behind shadows, until the lights flicker and your face looks back at you. It's not a resemblance. It's not similar. It's exact. You watch as you shift in your seat, eyes darting like you know something is wrong, but you're waiting for the rest of the room to catch up. The prosecution rises, presents a photograph. The camera doesn't show it, but the moment it's revealed, you visibly flinch. Sweat beads on your forehead, and then the gavel slams. Verdict, guilty. You rewind. Watch it again. At the moment the sentence is delivered, the audio crackles, a voice faint. Behind the courtroom mic says, trial loop confirmed. Identity override initiated. You freeze frame the image of your doppelganger. Then, check the trial transcript you've reviewed 100 times. Nowhere does it list the defendant's name. Just an ID code subject R15. You search it in archived legal databases. Only one result. Subject R15 voluntary participant. Cognitive immersion memory trial. Status memory integrity degraded. Subject reabsorbed into trial loop. The file is dated 7 years ago and signed Recorder, your name. You sit back, blood drained from your fingers. You weren't just a juror. You weren't just a recorder. You were the accused. And the moment you volunteered, maybe to uncover corruption, maybe to test the system, you fractured your own identity across trial simulations. Now it's all converging. You start connecting the evidence, Claire, the rewritten witness, the courtroom clock jumping backward, the looped verdicts, the sketch showing you missing because you were already in the frame. You pull out the folder labeled Do Not Reconstruct. Inside, there's something you missed before. A sealed envelope. You break it open. Inside is a mirror shard, and etched on the glass, you watched your own sentencing. You watched it until you believed it was someone else. And then, the system let you go. But you kept coming back. You hear a knock at your door. Slow, rhythmic, deliberate. You don't move. Then, a slip of paper slides under the frame. You pick it up. It simply reads, Section 20 is the key. But it's not the end. It's the reset. Your phone rings. You don't answer. Voicemail transcribes automatically. This is subject R15. If you're hearing this, you've breached containment. You must decide truth or continuity. You cannot have both. Your reflection in the window now lags behind your movements. Your thoughts are no longer linear. You begin to suspect that this is not just a memory. It is a retrial. And your guilt isn't a question. It's a necessity to keep the loop running. You write one final phrase on your wall before the lights dim. Again, I am the verdict and the witness. And somewhere beneath the noise, beneath the rolls, you hear the gavel rise again. The juror who never blinked. You go back to the footage. This time, you don't watch the defendant. You don't watch the judge. You don't even watch yourself. You watch juror number 3. She's there in every frame. Middle seat, red scarf, pale hands folded neatly on the table like a doll that's been set down just so. And you realize something terrifying. She never moves. Not once. No blink, no breath. Not even when everyone else shifts, coughs, sips water, or turns a page. She is still, as if frozen in time, or programmed. You check the official court roster. Juror number 3 is listed as Lena Dorsey, freelance editor, but a search turns up nothing. No address, no tax record, no existence. And when you try to pull security camera footage from the hallway outside the courtroom, she's never seen entering, never seen leaving. You enhance one clip, close up. There's a moment, just after a key witness stammers, when her head tilts exactly 15 degrees, not human reflex, mechanical precision, like she's waiting for a cue. You freeze frame on her eyes. They're open, wide, but behind them, glass, not metaphorically, literally. You reach out to a friend in Courtroom AV. Ask if there were any new systems installed during your trial. He hesitates, then says, not exactly. There was an experimental AI presence module, quiet observer, supposed to detect bias through facial analysis. You ask, where was it installed? Another long pause. They embedded it in the jury. You reread the label from the sketch in Section 13 Trial Instance 0027. Verdict loop. Divergence point reached. Now you understand. She was the control, the anchor to maintain balance in the loop. When emotional noise threatened coherence, she recalibrated it. Through silence, through stillness, through you. You revisit the moment the defendant reacts to the unseen photograph. Freeze. Every juror flinches, except her. She smiles, slightly, but it's there, like recognition or satisfaction. You enhance the image one more time and notice something in her lap. A small black device. No buttons, no wires, just a red blinking light, like a metronome. Tick, tick, tick. You pull up all footage from your own time on the jury. One angle you've never reviewed, wide shot from the gallery. In it, you see your own head turn exactly 15 degrees at the same moment as hers. You open your trial transcript, the one that's been altered, rewritten. You find a footnote you'd never noticed before. Note recorder shows response synchrony with AI control unit. Further testing advised. You look back at your reflection. Your neck stiffens, your breath slows, and you realize you haven't blinked in over 3 minutes. You grab your phone, open the camera. Your pupils don't dilate under light. There's a red light blinking behind your iris. And then you remember, you volunteered to monitor the trial, to be neutral, to stay detached. But somewhere along the way, neutrality became automation, objectivity became obedience, and you became the system. A new memory surfaces. You sitting in a cold white room. A man in a suit says, to ensure balance, one juror must never be human. They must be the loop's spine. You volunteered. You reach under your jaw, press where the skin feels too taut. Something clicks. The ticking in your head pauses, then restarts faster. And in that moment, you finally understand the core horror. You weren't in the loop. You were the axis it spun around, the unblinking eye, the recorder, the verdict, rephrased. Again and again and again, you scribble across the wall with shaking hands. Silence isn't consent, it's programming. Your last thought before the lights go out. What if juror number 3 was never separate? What if she's what's left of you before the trial began? Before you became this, the hallway that wasn't there. Before you wake to knocking again. But this time, it's not your front door. It's inside the building, behind the drywall, through the bookshelf, under the floorboards. The sound is soft, precise. 3 knocks, pause, 2 more. Rhythmic, deliberate. Like a signal, you follow it. Pull the shelf away. A crack in the paneling. Behind it, drywall has been cut neatly, surgically. And behind that, a hallway, long, narrow, and dimly lit by flickering fluorescents that hum like insects under glass. This corridor doesn't exist on any blueprint, and yet it feels familiar, too familiar, like you've walked it before, like you've never left. The floor is sterile tiled, government green. Each footstep echoes longer than it should. You pass locked doors, each marked with faded codes. J12, witness integrity. B09, reality drift. R15, recorder, loop active. You stop. That one. R15, your number. The door isn't locked. Inside a small room, bare except for a metal chair, a two-way mirror, and a stack of case files bound with a leather strap labeled Trial Instances Deviations. Only you flip them open. Each folder is stamped Failed in red. Each contains sketches of you in various stages, sitting in the jury box, standing at the defense bench, holding the gavel, observing from the gallery. Each one ends with the same note. Subject retained awareness. Loop collapsed. Restarted. On the desk, a cracked nameplate. Claire M. Witness stability control. You lift the mirror. Behind it, a hidden message, etched in desperate scratches. If you're still aware, you're not free. The verdict never and never ends, only rewrites. You sit in the chair. It molds to your spine like it remembers you. There's a microphone built into the wall. You speak, unsure why. What was my original sentence? The room answers, your voice fed back to you, but slightly older, tired, resigned, curiosity, repetition, collapse. You were sentenced to question the trial forever, because the trial was never theirs. It was yours. You stand abruptly. The walls feel closer, the air heavier. You try to leave, but the hallway behind you is gone, replaced by a courtroom door. You open it. Inside a trial in session, the same trial, but this time, every seat is filled with you. You as the defendant, you as the judge, you as the prosecution. The jury box, 12 versions of you, and they're all staring at the empty seat in the gallery, yours. You stumble backward. The door closes on its own. You reach into your pocket. The original verdict slip is still there. Only now the ink has faded, replaced with a single line. It was never about justice. It was about you realizing that justice doesn't end, it loops. You press your ear to the courtroom wall. A ticking clock. Then a whisper. Dozens of voices in unison. Yours. You knew, but pretended you didn't. It was never about the truth. It was about continuity. Control the recorder. Control the story. You find a pen on the floor. You scroll across the cold wall. This isn't a sentence. It's a reflection. Justice is the cage I built to trap myself. And then, in silence, the floor opens beneath you. Not with a crash, not with a fall, but with a shift. Like a page turning. A new section beginning. Another version loading, and you realize you didn't escape the hallway. You just walked into the next trial. The verdict that rewrote the past. The trial room is empty now. The lights flicker. Dust dances in the shafts of silence, and yet the gavel sits on the bench, perfectly centered, waiting. You approach the defense table, half expecting the chair to screech in protest when you pull it back. It doesn't. It glides smoothly, like it's been pulled back 1,000 times for you. And maybe it has. Maybe you've been here before. Maybe you never left. A single document lies on the desk, not typed, handwritten, your handwriting, but you don't remember writing it. The title reads, Verdict Iteration 0 Origin. Below that, in the event that memory realigns, the recorder must confront the root loop. You scan the body. It details a trial that mirrors yours, but it's dated decades ago. Same witness names, same courtroom, same arguments, same defendant, except the names change. From Claire to Clara, from recorder to watcher, from subject R15 to R0, but the structure identical, like a template, like a story rewritten over and over with new characters, but always the same ending. You flip to the final page. A single sentence stands out. When the verdict becomes the script, the memory becomes the prison, and beneath it a warning you've seen before. Do not reconstruct. You rise slowly, gaze sweeping the room. Something feels different now. You move to the gallery, look at the juror's box. Still empty. But then the door opens behind you. Soft footsteps, measured. You turn. It's you. Again, but older. Eyes sunken. Posture bent. He looks at you with quiet pity, then says, I remember thinking I was the last. But the recorder never ends. You're not the first, and you won't be the last. You ask him, what was the original trial about? He shakes his head. There wasn't one. There was only the question. and the obsession to answer it. He hands you a photograph. It's blank, but as your hand touches the paper, an image slowly develops. The trial room, filled with faces, all of them you. Different ages, different expressions, same eyes. In the center of the photo, scrawled in your own hand, you are not the verdict. You are the repetition. You tear the photo in half. The courtroom flickers. For a moment, you see what's behind it. An observation chamber, a white room, a body in a chair, wires in the skull, heartbeat monitor silent. You blink and you're back. The older you is gone, but the gavel now split in two, exactly as it appeared in section 12. You reach for it, but your hand passes through, like smoke, like memory. You look up to where the judge once sat. The bench is cracked. There's a mirror there now, instead of a judge, and written on the mirror's frame, the final judgment is always recognition. Once you remember, the loop fractures, and then you remember the first trial, the real one, the one where you chose to testify about something no one else would touch, something buried, something that threatened the order, and they punished you not with a cell, but with a loop. They didn't erase your story, they made you relive it until you no longer knew which version was real. You collapse into the gallery chair. You whisper, I was the verdict. I was the gavel. I was the witness. I was the crime. The trial was never meant to determine guilt. It was meant to sustain it. Like fuel, like ritual, like a story told too many times, too well, until it becomes prophecy. You knew, but pretended you didn't. Everyone lies, especially the quiet ones. It was never about truth. It was about breaking the loop before it becomes the only thing left. The memory that testified without you. The courtroom is gone, or maybe you're gone from it. You're standing now in a chamber of screens, floor to ceiling, each one flickering with a different scene. Some familiar, some not, but all of them share one thing. You. Your face, your voice, your hesitation. Each screen plays a variation of the trial like echoes across parallel corridors of time. In one, you're the defense. In another, you're the executioner. In a third, you're on the witness stand, eyes wide, lips trembling, saying words you've never said. I saw everything, but I said nothing, because silence felt safer. You stare, hollowed out, because you know you've never taken the stand. Not once. You try to turn away, but the screens follow. One image expands to fill the chamber. A courtroom, sterile and backlit. 12 jurors stare, faceless and blurred. You, the version of you on screen, approach the stand. Raise your hand to swear the oath, but then pause. Look straight at the camera, at you, and speak. I'm not the real witness. I'm the memory you tried to bury, and I'm tired of keeping secrets. Your knees buckle. The chamber pulses like a living thing. The screens glitch, flicker, reset. But now the faces staring back at you aren't you. They're the others, the ones you wronged, the ones who never got justice. A sister, a friend, a name you forgot, but a feeling you never could. Each of them mouthing the same phrase, you forgot the original crime, because the punishment rewrote it. You scream into the void. What did I do? The chamber answers with silence. Then, a screen behind you powers on. A forgotten VHS overlay. Time code flickering. You watch yourself in an old interview room. Younger, nervous, a lawyer seated beside you, unreadable. A detective slides a photograph across the table. You don't look. You say, if I testify, they'll come for me. If I lie, I have to live with it. And the detective asks, so which truth do you want to live with? You fast forward the tape. You answer, I'll take the lie. The camera cuts, but not before you sign a form, not a confession, not a statement, a release, consent for experimental sentence substitution, voluntary participation in cognitive containment protocol. You scroll down the fine print subject consents to narrative imprisonment until full moral integration is achieved. Loop continuation authorized in cases of sustained ethical dissonance. And beneath it, your signature. Clear, bold, voluntary. You drop to your knees because now you remember the original crime. You didn't commit the murder. You witnessed it. And you lied. To protect the killer, no. To protect yourself. And they let you walk free. Publicly. But privately, they sentenced you to something worse. To loop the lie. To become both the observer and the subject until you believe the story had to be real. And now the loop is breaking because you've remembered not just the truth, but your role in suppressing it. You whisper into the chamber, I remember. And for the first time, the screens stop, all of them, frozen on one final image. You, alone in the courtroom, empty seats, no gavel, just a mirror where the judge should be, and scribbled across it, you watched, you lied, you looped, but now you choose. You step forward, place your hand on the screen. It pulses once, warm, then fades to black. You chose the lie. Now, do you want the ending or the loop? The ending you weren't supposed to reach you. You stand at the edge of the chamber. The screens have gone dark. The courtroom is gone. No walls, no door. Just that infinite black around you. Like the page before a story is written or after it's erased. And then, from above, a spotlight. Not harsh, not dramatic. Just real. Like the kind found in interrogation rooms. Like truth itself, quiet, cold, and cornerless. In the light, a desk, and on it, a folder. Its label is handwritten in familiar strokes. Recorder, final session, voluntary closure. Your fingers tremble as you open it. Inside your full transcript. Everything. The trial, the lies, the loop, the rewrites. The moment you agreed to forget and to observe instead. There's one last form tucked into the back. It's blank, except for a single question. Do you still want to remember 2 boxes? Yes. No. No trick. No small print. No trap. Just a decision. The only real one you've had since the trial began. You stare at the pen on the desk. It's simple. Plastic. Government issued. But it feels heavier than the gavel ever did. You pick it up. And you hesitate. Because choosing to remember means living with the crime. Choosing to forget means waking up tomorrow. Again. You close your eyes. The ticking stops. No clocks now. Only breath. Your own. Unsteady. Human. You check the page again. Above the question, a note has appeared, typed in courier, time-stamped to the present moment. If you're reading this, the loop has thinned. What you do now defines whether this was therapy or punishment. You scroll a third word between the boxes. Justice, not truth, not peace. Just the word itself, its shape, its weight, its echo. You stand. The chair slides back with a soft click, like it knows this is the last time. You take the folder, step into the dark, and for the first time, there's no reset, no flicker, no whisper, just silence. Real, earned, and yours. You knew, but pretended you didn't. Everyone lies, especially the quiet ones. It was never about the truth. It was about control. But Control can be broken, and stories, even ones built as prisons, can still be rewritten if you're brave enough to end them. Word count Mark 180, proceeding to psychological wind down, final wind down, 300 words. So here we are, night listener, no echoes, no ticking clocks, no mirrored courtrooms demanding a performance you never auditioned for. Just the slow, quiet unraveling of a trial that was never about guilt or innocence, only awareness. You've walked every corridor of memory, stared into the cracked reflections, listened to voices that sounded like your own, because maybe they were, maybe they still are, maybe that's the point. The verdict was never meant to free you. It was meant to force the question, what is justice when you're both the witness and the accused? The courtroom has gone quiet now. No more loops, no more trials, just you and the silence left in truth's wake. You might feel safe, but that feeling, it's a flicker, a brief gasp between retrials, because somewhere out there, another version of you is opening the same folder, reading the same sentence, wondering if this is the time the story ends or just restarts with different lives. So sleep now. You've earned that much. But don't sleep too deeply. Justice has a way of rewriting itself in the night. And guilt doesn't die. It memorizes. It loops. It waits. And if you ever hear a knock at your door, 3 slow taps, then 2 more, you'll know. Another trial is beginning. Another truth is cracking open. So keep your folders closed. Keep your mirrors cracked. And above all, keep questioning. Because justice isn't blind. It just watches quietly. End of script. Sleep well and watch your back.